Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Sam Malema and I are sitting down to chit-chat, wax intellectual, check in on the things and the stuff and the whatnots. I'm recovering from an epic sesh last night. Me and Matt Shears got together, and then Scott from The Compass called in, and we went at it for a little while talking about different stuff. Those episodes are releasing as we speak. We've been talking a lot about guns, and we've been talking a lot about schools, and we've been talking about all sorts of fun little different stuff in our chat group. And we'll mess around with that as well. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Website is live. It is almostinagreement.com. All the episodes are getting uploaded there, as well as all your favorite podcast providers. And we're starting to play around with video, but we're not going to go full video on everything yet. But at least for most of the interviews, when I have public officials in here, I want you guys to be able to see their faces when they talk. So, again, we're almost in agreement, and buckle in. Here we go. All right, where do you want to start? All right, so I was putzing around on Facebook while Sam was on his way over here, and WVLT Channel 8 dropped a story that says 5 weapons found in virtual school settings. KCS releases report detailing how many weapons found across the school district. 51 total weapons, which is weapons range from guns, knives, tasers, toy guns, BB gun, airsoft, pepper spray, and 1 flare gun. I thought that was kind of funny too. Huh. Here's the quote: weapons range from guns, knives, tasers, BB/airsoft guns, pepper spray, and a lone flare gun. A lone flare gun. 1 singular flare gun. 7 guns were found across the county. 5 of those 7 were in virtual settings, and this is where I got a little. I took exception personally. WVLT News reached out to the officials for the district, and they confirmed that students in virtual schools either had a gun in the background or flashed it in front of the camera. Students in virtual settings would receive the same punishment as students in person. Now, what it doesn't say in there, which is plausible, is that, because I think there's a context question here that we don't have in this, whether or not... it seemed with intent that the kid had the gun in it, or obviously if the kid is handling the gun and flashing it on the screen, that's intent to show off the gun to his friends. I lean to the hypothetical of, this is my house. If I have my grandpappy's rifle mounted on the wall because it's my memorial to my grandpappy, and I mounted his rifle on the wall, and because my house is now the classroom, and I'm trying to set up a mini desk area for my kid to do his virtual stuff in, and maybe I didn't think about the fact that the gun was behind him. Is that something that a kid's? Because again, we were talking before the show. I don't remember. I know all weapons are the zero tolerance policy. I remember we had a kid that we graduated with that late second semester his senior year, there was a fillet knife, it was a fishing fillet knife that he had that was under the seat in his truck, and it was his dad's truck or something like that. I just remember it being one of those crazy stories that he came back to school, it was a Friday night, came back for a football game in his dad's truck, and his dad had left a fillet knife in there from when his dad was fishing earlier or something like that, and he got suspended, literally 3 months short of graduating from high school, got expelled, suspended, or whatever. I don't remember what the full punishment was, but
I don't remember that. Maybe there was a kid freshman year that forgot he had a pocket knife in his pocket when he came into school.
Right. And so, and again, I get the zero tolerance policy, but I don't, because, carrying it around in the classroom, in the building, that's one thing, but in your dad's truck on a football game counted, and it was in my recollection of it, it's been a long time, that it was a mistake that happened. It was pretty clearly a mistake on all accounts. The dad said, yeah, I was fishing in the truck earlier that day, and that, when I'm out on the lake or whatever, that's where I keep the knife so that it's not out in the open, so some kid doesn't grab it when I leave because I don't lock my truck or something. I don't remember what the story was, but shit like that. So anyway, the real issue here to me is the virtual setting part of it. I can acknowledge the zero tolerance on campus kind of thing. I get it. Just like the example put out, I'm not sure I 100% agree with it, but at least it has merit. But we're talking about a virtual classroom. I'm at home.
The flare gun was found at Carnes High School.
The flare gun was found at Carnes High School?
Yeah.
Noted. Yeah. So, yeah, that's just a lone flare gun.
3 airsoft guns and BB guns at Bearden Middle School. Found a typo. There's Bearden and South Doyle Height School.
Height School. It's for the tall kids.
There's a separate incidents, but don't mention it at all.
Yeah.
There were separate incidents at high schools. Blah.
But yeah, anyway, like I said, I just I take exception to the that they're allowed to treat your living room as part of campus, because that's where you had to set up your virtual classroom.
You're on a definitely large learning curve of just technology in general, just trying to keep up with it and trying to.
I think it's general bullshittery on that part. I think it's just overreaching. Like again, I if the kid's waving the gun and playing with the gun and showing the gun off to his friends through the virtual setting, all right, I'm on board. That's a problem.
I could see it more on a case by case basis, but they've got to have something to start from.
Right. Because I was telling the story I was telling before we got started is we were in a virtual day, and it was shortly after we'd went on our Chuck Swan camping or hunting trip, and we got rained on that whole day, and I was off work, and the kids were doing virtual school stuff on that Monday, I believe, and I had my rifle out because I was cleaning it to make sure I didn't rust after being in the rain. And I started to walk into the playroom that we have, which is like a general work craft area kind of setup that we have. And I'd got my rifle out and I was heading that way. And then it as I was almost about to enter the room that the kids were in with their virtual classroom, I was like, oh, wait a second. I heard a story about a kid getting in trouble for this in some other school district. Probably wouldn't be a good idea for me to walk through the background of the virtual classroom with my rifle. So I turned around and didn't. But at the same time, it's I think it's stupid. I'm a fucking grown-ass man. I'm trying to clean my rifle with my kids in the house because my kids are in the house because they're in virtual setting because of that one, because it was snowing, because they just were cheating on virtual days. I mean, they really did. That's a whole nother gripe I have right now. But, they were cheating on not giving a snow day out so they didn't lose the day of record for attendance, and they hit their required number of days for the year without having to add stuff at the end of the year or whatever, or cut off some of the vacations they're planning or all that kind of shit. And so but I literally I don't know, I took a pause and I was like, okay, it's not a good idea. But again, it's my fucking house. My kids are at home because they have to be at home because it's snowing outside and you want to do a virtual day. I have things to do. One of the things I had to do today was clean my gun, and I therefore didn't clean my gun that day. I put it off a couple of days for a different occasion. I just think it's an overreaching thing to me that I take issue with, I guess, is what I was getting at. But alas, that's that part of things. I don't know. What do you want to talk about? You didn't want to talk about this. I made you do it. I forced it upon you.
I mean, stick to guns if you want.
I don't care. I mean,
I thought there was a funny story out of California. I think it was a school board or somebody kind of high up in the school system that got a bunch of shit. I guess they were somehow recorded. I don't know if it was over a Zoom stream or whatever. But they basically said a lot of the parents, were reluctant to send their kids back to school. Or they were trying to get their kids back to school and out of the virtual so they could get high at home.
So the superintendent got in trouble for saying that?
I think it was somebody in the school system.
Oh, he was implying that's
teachers,
why.
Yeah, they were implying that.
That's why parents want their kids back in school, not because they want their kids back in school, but because they want free time at home. Yeah. That's stupid. That's California for you. I don't know, just talking shit.
I mean, I've been there as a parent. My kids to go somewhere. You want to go over to Billy's house?
I agree. I mean, that's one of the things Jennifer Owen, when she was on here with Ron McPherson, we were talking about it. It's she basically equated to Knox County School spends about the same as a regular daycare on their students. So an equatable size daycare would spend the same amount of money as Knox County schools, which I found that a little bit hard to believe. But she's the school board expert; she knows what she's
fucking expensive,
right? And she knows what she's talking about. And it's is that all we want school to be? And I was like, that's part of what I want school to be. Yes, but no, the education is supposed to be the goal, not just somewhere for them to be while I'm at work. But I agree. I mean, and then there's a socialization thing, and I was listening to Dave Smith today, and it was an older episode a couple weeks ago. He had a guest on. They were talking about some of the concerns about, the masking and the continued lockdown situations and stuff like that. And it's the guest was saying something along the lines of, whether we were meaning to or not, right now we are kind of teaching kids to be scared of smiles, to be scared of seeing faces, to be scared of hugs and physical contact.
I don't agree with that.
Because I think, I don't know. I mean, you're not allowed to, my mom has been as hardcore on it, and it's her business, and I respect her. She can do what she wants with it. But She's got the vaccine now, so she's loosened up on it. But I mean, it was like, can't remember. It was my birthday, maybe back in November. My mom stopped by to give me a birthday present and say hello or whatever. Kids came out, and she was like, "Whoop," like she's like, "Stay back." My dad stayed in the car. Like my dad wouldn't even get out of the car. I think in their brains, I think it's confusing to say the least. We can explain it all we want to, but it doesn't. I have a hard time believing there was not going to be some ill effects of what we have had to be socially for the last year plus on kids, especially younger kids. And again, Jennifer Owen was talking about how many kindergartners didn't go this year. Like Knoxville didn't get it as bad. She said in Memphis, when they were doing one of their school board get-togethers across the state or whatever and talking about different stuff, apparently like Memphis, like 60% of the kindergarten age kids didn't enroll.
Decided to go ahead and hold off another year.
So hold off another year. So they're going to have a giant kindergarten class next year. And so like the ripple of the next 12, 13 years of they're going to have this one class that is this one grade level that's just going to be huge across the school district. So that every year they're going to have to shuffling teachers into to the grade level to go up because this one class is going to be massive. And they're going to have a bunch of 19-year-olds as seniors.
Possibly.
Yeah, 18, 19-year-olds as seniors. But so, anyway, it was just interesting
there
stuff.
There was some state that was, it sounded like they were trying to make some kind of law or rule that would make it okay for kids to redo the year all over again, essentially.
Yeah, but again,
not count against them.
Right. There's a lot of parts and pieces to that. I mean, like for the straight education part, okay, but how does that function socially for a kid? I need to do the third grade again because it was so crazy, but a good chunk of his friends go on to the fourth grade, and so like his whole social network is now split up between kids that went on to fourth grade and kids that stayed in third grade, and the effects of that on a kid. I mean, because that's I don't know what that's what a kid is. It's just this little social butterfly floating around trying to figure out who he is as a person, or she, excuse me. Right. And they do that through the interaction with the other kids. That's why, I'm so gung-ho on not homeschooling because I don't want to turn them into little weird kids. That's not fair and it's not true. All homeschool kids aren't weird. Some are. Neil's sister, my buddy's Neil's sister is pretty
highly
weird.
Intelligent homeschooled kids.
Yeah, but they're weird socially.
I haven't heard any kind of percentage, but there's also a number of kids that have thrived in this virtual setting, where they feel like they can focus that much easier. Yeah. They can kind of do some of the, curriculum, kind of in their time.
I agree, and I think it's going to be interesting to see how things play out and adjust. Because I know Knox County is going to continue the same general format. A bunch of parents are bent out of shape because you have to announce next week. I think it's due by like the 18th of April.
I saw there was a lot of pushback on that.
It's like, how are we supposed to decide? We don't even know what's going to, like, that's August. We have to decide what we're going to do in August this week. And they just announced it like a week ago. So like parents have like literally a month. I mean, I don't care because I've already we've stayed in school the whole time physically anyway.
Yeah, I think the superintendent is planning to keep the same precautions in place for the following school year.
Right. And that's one of the things too, that there's pushback on both sides. On a lot of parents want to get the masks off the kids. I mean, and I'd be one of them. I don't believe in the necessity of it. Come next school year, if there's a teacher that's not vaccinated, that's by choice at this point. And the kids are very, very low risk in it. So what's the point of masking the kids up?
Are you asking me?
I mean, I maybe that was rhetorical, but I mean, sort of. It was a half rhetorical question. If you have a response to it, yes, I would like to hear it. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I think putting a mask on a child is just the same as an adult wearing a mask.
What's the point of the mask?
To help protect you and others.
Okay. What's the point of the virus or the vaccine?
To where if you get it, you don't have as severe of a case.
Okay. So all the teachers should be vaccinated by then.
Maybe. They're not going to require it, so there's no...
Right, but
there's no guarantee that all teachers will have it.
It's not going to be an availability question. Teachers that want it will have it. Teachers that choose not to take it won't have taken it. So they are choosing. They're accepting the risk at that point. At this point, especially as a teacher in the school system, you have no excuse not to understand the risks of not being vaccinated and being in the classroom.
All right.
So that's a choice.
We've had bad flu years to where we've literally run out of substitute teachers.
Okay. What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
If you run the chance of you've got 25% of a school's teachers that decide not to get the vaccine, and we continually have more and more variants that come out that are either better or worse or more easily spread. So
the solution is, since we're not going to force the vaccine, the solution is to keep the kids in masks.
That's one precaution.
And the teachers in masks.
It's one precaution. Yeah.
I think that's ridiculous. Again, if the vaccine is available, like, are teachers obligated to take a flu shot?
I doubt it. I don't know.
And again, if you're a teacher and you choose not to get the flu vaccine, are you going to punish the kid that came to school and brought the flu to the school?
No.
That gets the teacher sick? No. So why are we do it within this format? Again, understanding that this is not the same as the flu. It's not the same.
I'm sorry you think of wearing a mask as a punishment.
For a kid?
Yeah.
And like they can't wait. Like as soon as they get out the door, I finally got this mask off. Like every day. Like they tease each other because it's gotten to a point for a lot of them where they're just
maybe they
so used to it.
Maybe they perceive your attitude on it and they feel the same.
Maybe, but it's not just my kids. It's
right.
The kids in the group of kids that they leave school with. That as soon as they get out the door, that's the first thing they're trying to do. Except for the kids that forget that they have them on because they have them on so often.
I don't do
and then they make fun of each other.
I do the same thing too.
They make fun of each other. They're like, why are you wearing your mask, stupid? We don't have to wear a mask anymore. And then they go and they play with each other. They go to each other's houses and hang out and do kid stuff like normal kid stuff do. And then they go back to school the next day and put the mask on all day. I just don't. I have a hard time believing that it's.
You can't take it off for lunch and recess.
I don't think they can take it off for recess. I mean, they're wearing them outside when I see them.
Right.
I mean, obviously they have to take them off to eat, but all the teachers and the lunch ladies are in masks and stuff like that. Which the lunch ladies probably should be in masks all the time anyway, regardless of pandemic or not, just for general hygiene and food service.
Why should they have to wear a mask?
Why? Because they're handling food. Oh. We don't want them to cough on the food and get kids sick.
Should all restaurants require masks when you're making food? Does the health department require that?
No.
No, they don't. Oh, that's weird.
Is there a point other than to point out?
Just being a smart ass.
You're framing it in a way like you're trying to be like, aha, I got you on something. It's like I don't. At least there's a line of logic for a lunch lady wearing a mask versus all the kids wearing a mask to me. And so but again, Bob was talking. Hey, Belly. Bob was talking about Bob Thomas in the email was talking about specifically stating in the email that we're going to continue to follow the CDC guidelines or whatever. Basically, kind of it read to me like he was just kind of leaving it in the air, but responding to it because a lot of people have been asking about it on both sides. Like a lot of people are like, hey, can we get the kids out of the mask already? This is stupid.
And I'm sure they can just
plenty of other people is like
unimplement
right
some of those as well.
Right, because I think that's what I think the issue at play is that parents are trying to make a decision on whether they're going to go back to school or not, and parents that feel like it's important that the kids are in masks don't want to send their kids back to school if the schools aren't going to require the masks.
Right.
So they want to know now. It's the same problem. Like it's the same problem that the school board has presented to parents that is now presented to the school board in the inverse is that, the parents we don't know what's going to happen by then. The school board doesn't know what's going to happen by then. The parents don't know what's going to happen by then. And so there's plenty of parents that's like, I want to put my kids back in school, but we don't know if we're going to be on vaccine rollout. We don't know if we're going to be on masks and stuff then either. I'm not putting my kid back in school until I feel it's safe and this is the checklist I need. And that we won't know that until June, July, August, but you're making me make a decision now. And then the inverse is the parents are being like, well, are they going to have to wear masks or not? It's like, we don't know what's going to happen by then. Right. We may not be required to. The CDC might be like, you don't have to wear a mask anymore, so we don't.
It's a lot of unknowns.
I mean, I think I'm going to be curious to see if they just, like, when flu season starts, if they just start requiring masks for portions of the year. Like, once we fully get out of the pandemic part of things and get back to the more normal-ish thing, like, kids are going to have to wear masks from November to February in class.
I remember seeing some stories of how much it was affecting kids. I guess now they've started. I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but school-age children. I don't know if they've done it at the elementary schools, but simulating active shooter drills, and kind of thinking back, to our parents that lived during the Cold War, of constantly being in fear of getting nuked any day of the week.
We did for scouts one time. I had our school resource officer come and do our den meeting, talking about I don't remember what the program was, but like talking about what the job was, what he has to do, and kind of sharing that with the kids in a more semi-formal setting of scouts instead of in passing in the hallways or whatever. And he was talking about like he's part of his job is to set up and operate like emergency drills, and he wasn't super specific on which drills. Like I don't know. We did tornado drills in high school, right?
Yeah, very rarely, but
yeah. So yeah, I'm assuming like fire drills, tornado drills, and I don't know if active shooter drill was on that list of things.
I know some schools have been doing it. I don't know how often, but they were reading a story of how much this may or may not be like kind of not really traumatizing, but kind of affecting kids' psyche.
Well, I mean, it's kind of one of those like it's kind of the same.
Tornado drill. I mean, everyone knew it was a tornado drill. When you've got it, in the middle of spring, they're like, it's not a tornado, it's not raining outside.
Right.
So everyone just kind of like walks where you're supposed to be, like, oh, okay. I was like, cool, we get to get that.
So they're talking about doing like a surprise one where it's like, alarms going off and the kids don't know anything.
I think it's planned.
I think that would be traumatic. Yeah, if you're like, oh, there's an active shooter, and whatever the drill is. Like, I think it's like, hey, we're gonna run the active shooter test today.
Which I think even some of the tornado drills, I don't think were always announced.
Yeah,
teachers may have known, but they may not have let on.
I don't remember specifically. Fire drills were random. I mean, fire drills were. I don't remember a fire drill being like, "Oh, we're going to do a thing."
Yeah, maybe it was fire drills that were more random.
Yeah, because I think I think I got to the point where I'm like, "Oh, some jackhole pull the alarm. He's getting suspended." Mm-hmm. Every time we had a fire drill, and just assuming that it was somebody being an asshole, not an actual planned fire drill.
Right.
But yeah, if they're doing it surprise, that's fucked up. Like that would fuck with a kid's head. But I don't know. It goes back to that. Like that's the old argument in sex ed too. Like the old argument in sex ed is like, if we're going to teach them about sex, they're going to have sex.
Is it better to inform you?
Right. Or if we're going to teach them how to handle it, like by having an active shooter drill, are we teaching the kid that's going to be the active shooter how to avoid it?
That's what a lot of comedians kind of joke about.
It's like, yeah. So
they're like, oh wait, so you guys gather in which room? Oh,
right.
Okay. Then you check the doors. Okay.
This is the order of operations. Check. All right.
Which doors do you lock?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, that's an interesting conundrum. I don't know what the right play on that would be. I think I think it's wise that there's some level of preparedness for it. Obviously, since we're in a world where that happens.
Right.
I still have a hard time with the term mass shootings. 4
or more.
I just feel like that's not I'm not trying to devalue life here, but 4 seems a little low to be considered mass to me. Like, I feel like mass needs to at least be double digits.
I'm fine with 4.
I don't know. I just like, again, I'm not saying it's wrong. I just like for
I mean, most murders are 1, maybe 2 people.
Right. Yeah, except the guy that goes in and takes the whole family out.
Right. When you're shooting 4 people, like, let's say it escalates higher and higher from there up.
I think one of the implications of the phrase mass shooting is that it's random too. Random in the extent that it's not like it may be specific in school kids or like the gay bar thing in Orlando, the nightclub one, where it was like it was specifically towards that subset of the culture, but it wasn't like I'm going to shoot Billy, Johnny, Steve, George. Like, I think that's one of the things that's implied in mass shootings, that it's more the victims are more random. It's not an intentional. It may be an intentional subsection of the community that you're targeting, but it's not individuals in a mass shooting. Like the Vegas guy didn't, he wasn't shooting at specific people. He was just shooting into the crowd. Right. So to me, that's part of the definition of mass shooting. To me, is that it's more about the victims are more random to the shooter, other than they're part of a group that happens to be together.
I think the most recent one was it Orange County, LA? I think they did say that the suspect didn't know the people that he killed.
Yeah, I mean, you had the one. There's one in was it Nashville area or whatever that was like a. No, there's another one in California that was like
I forgot. I saw something that was talking about the most recent quote unquote mass shootings. Yeah, I think it was the guy that was at a Waffle House, and can't remember if he shot up the Waffle House. I was like, oh yeah, I almost forgot about that one.
That's part of it.
They started mentioning all these different ones, and I was like, oh, I forgot about that one. Oh yeah, there was that one too. I was like, I forgot about that.
Yeah, like when Anton was on, he mentioned, he's like, it's weird to say that we're desensitized, but it's like, they're so damn often that if you freak out about every single mass shooting at this point, you can't function. Like, there was a mass shooting yesterday. There wasn't, but I'm just saying, like, if every time there was a mass shooting, there was a mass hysteria over mass shootings, there'd just be constant mass hysteria. And I don't know if that helps the situation or not. Mr. Chauvin's on trial. Have you been following that at all?
A little bit.
Again, Dave Smith, the podcast, he was talking about it, and he's like, I'm pretty sure he's not going to jail. Pretty sure he's getting off on this one. The defense stance is that it was all within protocol.
Right, but apparently his supervisor or somebody that does training, I think it was yesterday, came out and said, yes, it was excessive. Like, no, you're not trained to keep your knee on a person's back for that amount of time when someone is handcuffed. He said, I guess there is like a little bit of gray area for improvisation when you're trying to subdue someone, but once you have them in handcuffs and they're not resisting, it is not within textbook restraint to keep your knee on somebody's back or neck.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question of that it was fucked up. I mean, there's no question it was a fucked up situation. And
does he have an argument to say that he was still fearing for his life, so he did feel like he had to hold him down for that much longer?
Right. Yeah. I
thought he was wiggling, so I thought he was getting ready to break free.
Right. And
that's
panic state, and there's
prove,
panic state, and then the drugs in the system part of the conversation too, and how the drugs in the system were affecting him as a suspect at the time, and how he was reacting to commands and stuff like that. Even though we have it all on tape, there's a lot of stuff moving real fast. And again, not to excuse the action by any stretch. It's a terrible thing that happened, and there should be punishment for it. But it's one of those: is it his fault as a police officer, or is it the way the police department works in general that's more to blame? Those kind of questions, and it's going to be bad if he walks on this. It's going to be a bad time to be in densely populated municipalities. I think we'll go right back to last summer the second that verdict comes out.
It's possible.
I'm not asking for it. I'm not hoping for it, but it's hard to imagine it's not going to happen if he is acquitted of said charges, or at least found or mistrial because it's a hung jury or something like that. I can't imagine that we're not going to have riots as
happened after Michael Brown in Missouri.
Right. But I think one of the things that's specifically interesting about the George Floyd case is that it was international. There's international outrage about that one. It wasn't just.
There were murals of them on walls in Afghanistan.
Right. It's not just, but it wasn't just Minneapolis. It wasn't just the state of Minnesota. It wasn't just the Midwest. It was all over the place.
Right, because it's something that happens all over the world.
Right. I'm just saying, like you had the Rodney King incident and then the LA riots to follow, but you didn't have a riot in New York following the Rodney King incident. You know what I'm saying? Like, previous versions of similar situations didn't have protests and riots that followed in the way we did.
Just go back. I don't remember hearing about any other. I don't know if the major one was just in L.A., but I'd say there were probably other protests in other cities. It was a pretty national story.
We'll have to go reference that Sublime song. It's a great song. April 26, 1992. There was a riot on. Yeah. I was a kid in Wisconsin, so I had nothing to do with any of that. Pretty close to Kenosha at the time, but and then the Kenosha one, that one too. Which again, I don't know if there's any. I don't even know if they pressed charges on that police officer. I don't think they did. I haven't heard any follow up on that story. That just kind of went by the wayside.
I think he's out of the hospital. I think he is suing the officer, suing the police department for excessive force.
I don't know.
May have been the last thing I read.
Yeah, I'd have to. I haven't heard any follow up on that one. I won't say I haven't tried to follow up on it either, but I haven't heard
any.
In
Kenosha as well.
That was the Kenosha
just
one.
The Rittenhouse.
Though that was that was the same set of circumstances with the.
That was different circumstances.
No, that was the Rittenhouse kid went to Kenosha,
right,
to defend air quote or to quote defend private property with his Boogaloo buddies or whatever the group of peoples that were getting together to do that part of it because of the riots in response to the guy getting shot in Kenosha. That was the guy that like got paralyzed or whatever by the cops in Kenosha. That was the same base incident as it mushroomed out, for lack of a better word. Gotcha. Tired of it. So, God, I had a big week. Chris Davis, Kyle Ward, Matt Shears, and Scott all this week. This is a 5-episode week for me.
I only made it through maybe 25, 30 minutes of the Kyle Ward before we were checking the live Facebook Live or the YouTube, trying to see if that was working. So then I had to switch back to that and watched you and Scott.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
So I only made it through a little bit of...
I mean, you got the good half. I mean, we did a little over an hour, and probably about 30, 35 minutes in as we came off the Board of Health part and went on to other stuffs. Because it was interesting. Like, it's fun. It's fun for me. You know, Kyle is my commissioner, and he's in my district or whatever. Apparently, he moved just down the street. He's like 600, 700 yards away or something like that. So I can find out where he lives now. Anyway,
did he stay within district or he moved districts?
No, he was in District 4. He was up in Hardin Valley or something like that, as we say. He was over that direction. I don't know if he moved so that he'd make sure he stayed in district. I don't know what the impetus for him moving.
I think you have to live in the district in which you serve.
Yeah, and and that was one of the things that I don't remember who. It might have been Chris Davis the first time he was here. So I was talking about it, is that you have to be in district. And we were talking about redistricting and gerrymandering. He's like, it's possible. The only exception to the have to live in district is that if during your term there's a redistricting, and in a redistrict, your residence comes out of your district that you're elected. Right. We can't make you move. Right.
Like, hey, we just redrew the lines. You're going to have to find a new house. Yeah. Like, good luck with that.
Right.
Especially right now.
Right. For your, like, what is it? I think they make $12,000 a year, give or take, is my understanding of it. Apparently, the law director makes $170. Me and Matt were talking about it. Matt Shears and I were talking about it the other day. He found the records. I don't remember where he said he found it, but it is public record, obviously, that what all the different elected officials and stuff make.
Yeah, I think I ran across it in some of the state or county numbers I was looking at.
Well, yeah, you were talking, because you said you've been reading the state constitution, and you saw in there that they make like $1,800 a year.
Yeah, I sent you the screenshot of it.
Yeah, but like,
I'm assuming there's other things that just aren't in that, maybe just not in the Constitution. Maybe that's the base, and then you get so much from the city or so much from the county.
Yeah, and so
that's the only thing, that's the amount that the state provies.
Law director makes $180. Martha Buchanan, Dr. Buchanan from the Health Department, makes $190. But the chief medical examiner, who she oversees, makes $357,000. I guess that's a county job. I mean, that's where he was pulling this data from. So the chief medical examiner for Knox County, who is under Martha Buchanan, makes just short of twice as much as she does. Deputy law director makes $158. The economic development, Chris Caldwell, makes $170. So we were talking about that, going back and forth. He wants me to start doing a game show whenever I have a guest. Get to the end, so like I've got to like every time I have somebody on, commission or council or whatever, it's always like, what am I missing? That's become one of my standard questions. Like, what's been going on that you've been working on that's not getting any coverage that you think needs it or whatever. That's been one of my standard questions. And then Matt wants me to follow it with, how much do you think person X makes? And then follow it, and then make it a game show. And for bonus, is that too much or too little in your opinion? It's just to see. It's a pretty easy.
It was hard to find an exact number, and Trump was one that actually was pissed off about it as well. But how much the head of TVA makes?
Yeah, and that was
it was like somewhere between like
it's the highest paid, right?
and like $3 million, depending on like different options. That
apparently by a hefty sum, the highest paid federal employee.
Yeah, is the head of TVA.
Is the head of TVA. So
we just got a new one in the past year or so.
I think that was part. I think wasn't it Trump said you're going to replace him and pay the new one less, or I'm going to fire him for you or something like that. I know that I remember hearing the story. There was some Trump was pressuring the thing.
I was like, hell yeah, go Trump.
Yeah. So one of the few times I get to cheer for you. Woo!
I agree with you.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy that.
Did you see that one clip? I don't want to go back to guns, but you see that one clip of Trump saying he was basically, I think it was right after Parkland, that he was basically, I guess they were talking about red flag laws. He was like, yeah, they should, go in and preemptively, take guns out of people if they think they're getting ready to do harm. He's basically just kind of going off of his legal history of lawsuits take forever and the courts take forever to do this and that.
Yeah.
Apparently, like Pence in that same interview was like, "Yeah, I don't think the NRA and some of your supporters
would be able to agree with
would
that."
Agree with that, yeah. He's like, "No, yeah, I think we should go in there and do it." I was like, "Wait, did Trump just say?" Because eventually, it was throwing out all due process.
Yeah, that's essentially what's happening. That's what That's why a lot of people are really against the red flag laws. Is like the joke version of it is like, is thinking about committing a crime? Like if I'm like, I want to go, I think it'd be cool to rob a bank. I could use the money. Did I just commit a crime? No, I'm not even going to the. I'm not even going to the.
Until you actively plan, then
right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not even going
to.
Right, and that's still a little bit gray area to me because it'd be like, again, same kind of premise. I make the joke, what if we robbed a bank, and then we go back and forth and start talking about how we would rob a bank? Is that conspiracy to commit robbery? Because we're like, this is the bank that I would do, and this is how I'd enter the building, kind of stuff. Does that maybe I can ask the sheriff that next week when he's here.
What can I do? How many steps can I take towards robbing a bank before it becomes illegal?
Realistically, what actually constitutes conspiracy? Like, is it just talking about it? Because just theoretically running down a rabbit hole.
They've arrested many people for trying to set up their spouse or whoever, like setting up a hitman. Right.
And again, that's one of those, like I could see it to a level where it's like, if you go to the process of hiring them and there's a handshake deal, you're going to kill my wife and I'm going to pay you $100,000 to do so.
Money's exchanged, or was it money was offered?
Right. Once it gets to the point, like I agree with it in the sense that if you're the hitman and I'm hiring you to kill my spouse, and I come to you and I say, if I give you $100,000 when you kill my wife, and you say yes, and I say, all right, let's do it. That is conspiracy to commit murder to me. But at the same time, hanging out at the bar one night, just shooting the shit, and we're fucking around. Maybe had a big fight with a wife earlier that day, and I'm going out to blow off some steam because I'm mad about it, and I have no real desire to kill my wife. But we start joking around at the bar about how would I kill my wife if I wanted to. Is that conspiracy to commit murder? I don't know. That's a weird thing, and I don't know what the threshold of proof would be on the state. Right. In those circumstances. How did we talk about that? I don't know. How did we get to this? So anyway, I had Kyle Ward was on, and we talked the Board of Health thing. And I still think it's one of those things that that Kyle among everybody else doesn't really seem to quite understand exactly what the ramifications are and how this is going to work moving forward. As far as it looks like to me, nothing fucking changes. Absolutely nothing changes. The biggest thing that changes is it goes from the Board of Health being required to publicly have their meetings to just continuing to do their meetings, but they don't have to be public. And whether they vote on it or not doesn't matter. Whatever Dr. Buchanan says, that's what goes. And so it basically just takes the 7 or 8 Board of Health members into whatever Buchanan says, which again, according to Kyle, was basically what was happening anyway. Right. Like, because one of the things that Kyle's and Biggs and those guys' complaint of the Board of Health is that the Board of Health has a veterinarian, a dentist, a pediatric doctor. Like, it's the way the state set the thing up or whatever, there are specific roles that have to be seated in the Board of Health. It can't just all be it can't all be ER doctors. It has to be, because one of the guys from UT, like the position that he holds at UT as the whatever chief medical advisor or whatever his technical role at UT is, that is a requirement of one of the people on the Board of Health to be that. And then Martha Buchanan being one because she is the director of the health department, and then Dr. O'Brien because of whatever his job title is part of it. If Dr. O'Brien was a veterinarian, well, there's already a veterinarian on, so he couldn't be on there, or the one that is the veterinarian couldn't be on there. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So there's like 7 seats. There's the community one that I tried for.
Specific.
It's a specific focus
specific medical professions.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like there has to be like an ER administrator or something like that. There has to be a veterinarian. There has to be a dentist. There has to be a pediatrics. And so of the 8 people, each one has a specific job title that they need to have to be eligible for the seat. And so it couldn't be 7 ER doctors. It has to be 1 ER doctor and 1 whatever, and goes from there. And so, and which is one of the complaints. It's like, what does the dentist have to do with anything in a public health conversation? Unless we're talking about a brush teeth mandate, which we all know is important. So you should brush your teeth.
Well, I hear a lot of people say, the health director serves at the pleasure of the mayor.
Right. And then that's that's the assumption that Matt puts forth, is that this is step 1 is dissolving the Board of Health, and step 2 will be the same group of people will go after getting Buchanan replaced with somebody different.
Right. I realize that there's just putting somebody in between her, or basically putting somebody in above her.
Not above her. It's as I understand it, it'll have to be replace her. She has to be gone.
I'd say it could go either way.
I mean, what do you mean? Who's between them?
It was essentially creating a position in between them, creating a position above them.
I haven't heard any of that as far as intent from anybody.
Like a county health CEO or something. I don't know.
Oh, so creating
being a healthcare.
Right, now that the Board of Health's gone, because I mean they already created the new. There's the new Health and Economic Board or whatever that was that Kyle and Justin and them set up at the beginning of this debacle, and so we have a separate Health and Economics Board that's supposed to kind of. I mean, again, I get the idea of it. So you have some doctors and stuff like that are more pandemic specialists, partnered with economists and stuff like that, and social workers kind of things, just because. So it's not just the idea being that we're not only looking at this 100% on the health aspect, 100% of the health aspect.
How does it affect everything else?
Right. So what is this doing to working? What is this going to do socially and mentally for the people that are under the new guidelines set forth and stuff like that? And how do we, which again makes sense to me. If we're going to have an advisory board for a pandemic, one that's more focused on a pandemic and not just specifically the health part, makes sense. Yeah. But again, like I said, I still don't know that the majority of people that are most animated and talking about what's going on with the Board of Health situation on either side understand what they're doing. Both the elected part of people as well as and especially the citizen activists that are angry and upset about it. Right.
Which I think is understandable. I mean, there are so many unknowns about the virus in itself.
Right, but I think that's I think the problem is that the source isn't there. There's not a good source. There's not a good reliable source. Some of it's just straight partisanship. I'm a hardcore Democrat, so I don't care what Kyle says. Right. I'm not going to believe him. He's got some nefarious actions at play. And so whatever comes out of his mouth is feeding his nefarious action. It's not feeding me the truth that I need to know as a resident. And then the inverse of that being, I don't care what Lundy says. I don't care what Durrett says. They're Democrats. I'm a Republican. I don't care what they have to say. And so there's that whole issue in it. But then you go on top of that where it's like, well, the Board of Health doesn't really exist. We barely paid attention to them. There wasn't a lot of existence in their history until all of a sudden it became a big deal that they existed. And so, do we trust this random group of people that nobody knew existed until a year ago to be making decisions on our behalf? And that was the question at play. In my opinion, that was the question at play that Ward and Biggs were against, that this body of people that has a very, very peripheral setup that they have any accountability to the public because they're not elected, they're appointed. And the recall process nobody knows how to do the recall process, which that kind of bothered me when I asked Kyle about that. It's like, well, somebody made a good point in one of the groups. It's like, well, if they're appointed, that's the same as Buchanan's appointed or Bob Thomas is appointed by the school board. Like that's one of the processes we do. And while they are not elected in and of themselves, they come at the behest of elected officials. Right. So the officials that appoint them and confirm appointments, those are the ones on the hook for the actions of whomever. And so it's like, well, these people were appointed, so somebody signed off. Right, the mayor's office and the commission are appointing them, and they have like 2-year terms. So they're all within Mary Jacobs' tenure as mayor, and some of the commission were there when these people were appointed. But again, it's this body that nobody really pays that much attention to. So I'm assuming that most of these appointments were just rubber stamped. Mayor says put this person in there. You say okay. And then you just repeat. I'd be curious to know how many, like how often after a term, a new person comes in or the same person keeps filling the role over and over again.
Right.
I don't know if there's a term limit on top of a term, but so, yeah, anyway, the other question was that how do we get rid of them? So if it's like, we don't like what they're doing, we don't think they're acting in the best interest, they have this authority in place. Nobody talked about it at any point on the commission, as far as I heard, of removing people from the Board of Health instead of removing the Board of Health as a whole. And it's like, well, we can't wait for the new appointment process because that's way off in the distance. It's a year and a half away or something like that. I don't know when they were most recently upped in appointments anyway. But, so that was one of the things to me that's like, how is nobody asking this question? Well, because nobody knows the parts and pieces well enough to know to ask this question yet.
Well, I think there's something in the state legislature right now that would, I think, for the counties that have, the 7 counties or whatever that have their own health directors.
5, I believe, yeah.
But I think for those, they're trying to make it to where, any health decision would be at the behest of the mayor,
right,
and not the health director.
Right. And I think...
I don't know where that's at in the legislature.
And I'll tell you what, one of the things I did like that Kyle said, which is one of the things they're working on, is like that if that part goes through and it goes through Jacobs, one of the things Jacob said when setting it up is like, if we set this up and this is the way we're going to do it, there's a 30-day sunset.
Like how you kept calling her Dr. B.
Yeah, that's whatever. It's his, and again, going back to my point of like, well, he's a Republican and I hate him. I mean, that Matt basically said, he's like, he doesn't respect her. He doesn't do anything. Calls her Dr. B to try to sound friendly, but that's a show he's putting on to make it sound like he doesn't.
Oh, well, he fooled me then.
That's what I'm saying. It's like,
I thought it sounded friendly.
It's like, well,
I don't know their relationship.
Right. And Matt made a big point about it at some point when Buchanan was speaking at one of the meetings or whatever. Buchanan said something, and it just so happened that one of the cameras from the CTV or whatever was on Matt, or was on Kyle, and he rolled his eyes. And so it's like, oh, see, you rolled his eyes when Buchanan's talking. You don't respect somebody for rolling. I was like, Matt, I respect you. I like you a lot. I roll my eyes all the time when you talk. And I was like, it doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It just means that you're going on one of your things again. And it's like, I've heard this thing 1,000 times from you. I don't want to hear it again. I roll my eyes at that. So what? Doesn't mean I don't respect you. Doesn't mean I don't like you. But anyway, that's the partisanship thing at play. I should have shared that with you. You would have appreciated it. Apparently, Lauren Ryder, District 2 in the city, is running. She currently holds the seat, but she's running for re-election in the city cycle. I can't remember where exactly it's from, but some PAC has already started sending mailers out, some hit piece mailers out for this city race. And it's like, it's super early. Matt sent me that too. The picture of the meme of Biden walking up the stairs with Mario Kart. But where'd it go? This one. Yeah.
That's one thing I've seen mentioned on, kind of like the Daily Show and last week tonight or whatever, talking about how, the U.S. is kind of unique in how long our election cycles are.
Yeah.
Where, I think there is some kind of law, like once you announce that you are running, you only have, 90 days in which to ask for money, basically ask for donations and solicit donations.
Oh, really? I don't know about that. I know that...
I don't know if it's for certain races or...
I know that like specifically like the city race we have going on right now, like 3 weeks ago is when the petitions open. So that's when the campaign officially can start.
Right.
You could talk about I plan to rerun and all that kind of stuff, but you're not actually running for re-election until you pick up that petition. And that's 10 months from election day, give or take.
Right. I want to say they mentioned like Mexico, and I think you can't start canvassing and going out like 2 months before the elections. Like it's a really small time that small window that they give you to go out. And,
I wouldn't be opposed to that, but the problem with it,
politic.
The problem with it is like this PAC group, you can't tell them when and what to do. When they want to speak, they can speak. Right. Like the actual inside the campaign, Lauren Ryder for district whatever, that campaign, I can get on board with some restrictions on how long and stuff like that or whatever. But as far as just individuals or these action committees.
Right. Like you said, they can't really regulate those, but the actual official, campaign.
Yeah, but good on Lauren, by the way. So so this is the hit piece thing, and it's not the most flattering picture probably ever taken that was used on purpose for this hit piece or whatever. That's her profile pic now. She's like, all right, I'm okay with the picture.
I'm smiling.
Take it. She's like, and I was like, I saw that and I was like, that's pretty badass. Way to go. Take it back. And it's like, but it's the Roving Patriots Pact, and they're out of Gallatin. And I don't know who they are, where they came from. Apparently I don't know. I have no idea. Like, and maybe this is the socialist referenced by Mr. Burchett from the GOP meeting. I don't know. I'm still not sure about that. I mean, the mailer reads like it is, but, she's a Democrat.
Liberal. Radical liberal.
She's a Democrat. She donates to Renee Hoyos instead of the Republican in the same race. Okay, duh. She's a donor to Gloria
it sounds
Johnson.
bad when they put it like that, doesn't it?
Right. She
supports her fellow Democrats.
Right. She supported Gloria Johnson. She contributed to Kamala Harris's campaign. Okay, she's a Democrat. She's extreme progressive organizations like Act Blue and radical candidates. I don't know. Oh, that's what she was talking about.
Some aggressive fonts.
To erase American history, destroy the nuclear family, and shut down our faith. See, that's a weird one. Our faith? How do you justify that statement?
It's collective Christianity.
But you send that to
I haven't kind of brought in the Judeo-Christian into it as well.
Yeah, but I mean, you send that to my house. That's not our faith because I don't have the same faith as whoever sent this thing, or they don't know. I don't know that I have the same faith as whoever sent this thing.
The people they think will be triggered by that flyer would agree with it. Yeah, it's our faith.
It is, and it's stupid. It's all stupid.
It's further divisiveness, and there's more divisions within Christianity than there is.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I got on mad about it, and I told him, I was like, it's not because you're a Democrat. It's because because you're a party person. I'm not going to sit around and be okay with you guys playing this game. He's like, yeah, but we have to. I was like, I respect that you have to. I understand that that's how the game works. The game sucks. Stop playing it. Be the adult in the room. I
think it's happened to a lot of politicians.
Right.
They want to take the high horse, but eventually, you get punched in the gut enough.
Right. You got to swing back. And especially with it's like one of those, like, and I should have asked Matt about it, but we got talking about other stuff. It's like, what are you allowed to do as a party? Because you're not allowed to communicate with, if you're communicating with the candidate directly on behalf of them and campaigning on behalf of them, that goes into like a funding thing where it has to go into the, like, there's max amount they can spend on candidates, just like you and I can only donate so much.
I think you mentioned it.
The party has restrictions on how much they're allowed to do with a certain candidate on the candidate's behalf directly, but indirectly they can do stuff. Like they could run ads that are pro Lauren Ryder. As long as Lauren Ryder doesn't give him permission, it doesn't have anything to do with her campaign directly, so they have more room to do stuff. And it's like, that is weird and gross to me. That's just as weird and gross to me as these PACs. Is they're an outside body that is acting either on direct behalf or directly against a candidate without the people that it's supposed to be benefiting or hurting, like the hurting part, whatever. But like, as of right now, I don't think there is officially anybody running for district against Lauren Ryder yet. I think that I'm pretty sure there are people that are planning on it, and there's been conversations about her, but I don't even think there's a opponent in this race. And
I was about to say, I don't think those flyers had the opposition on there.
Yeah, no, it's
like, vote so-and-so. It's just like, shit on this person.
And again, then I told Matt, and I'll tell Danny the same thing when I get to talk to him next. It's like, I wholly reject the because I'm not them campaigning. I wholly reject that. If any, and I told him too, especially on the city race coming up, I was like, if any one of your candidates says anything about doing anything for the schools, I'm going to shit all over them. I'm going to go next level as hard as I can after that person for full-on rhetoric, full-on bold-faced lie rhetoric, because the city council can't do anything. They can't do anything about school budgets. That's all county stuff. Everything that the schools do is county-wide, and almost everything the school does either comes from state level stuff or the school board itself. What little commission can do is sign checks. Actually, just sign off on the budget. They can't even. That's all they've got is signing off on the budget or whatever. And so, if any city race, anybody out there who's running for city, Republican or Democrat or Independent, whatever your name is, if you start talking about how important schools are and what you're going to do for the schools, I'm going to call you a liar, and I'm going to yell about it because it makes me mad. That is a bold-faced lie right there, and it's just taking advantage of the fact that most people don't understand the workings. Right. They don't understand that the city council has nothing to do with the schools. So then that person's like, yeah, it's important that we have great schools, and I'm going to do the best I can to have the best schools in the state. And it's not necessarily a lie. They might want to do that, but then they don't know their job, or it's going to have to be something they do in the periphery that has nothing to do with what they're asking you to vote for them for. And so to me, it's a bold-faced lie that you're just using that to drum up whatever. It's the same thing as like abortion talk in campaigning. Nobody's really doing anything about it or will do anything about it in the long run. I just know it's something that gets people excited, so I talk about it. And that's crap. And that's one of the many things that needs to stop in campaigning.
I mean, some people put that on there just to show what their values are. To have more people either vote for them. Like, oh, they think like me.
No, right. But that's the point. Is all they're doing is they're activating. It's like it's pushing the go button on the crowd. It's this one topic, even though I have nothing to do with it and will do nothing about it because I can't. But I'm going to push the button because it gets the crowd moving.
Right.
And it's me just taking advantage of the fact that the crowd doesn't know any better.
I'd be curious. I mean, I know that you get a lot more in kind of advertising and more at the kind of federal level, but I'd say a number of campaigns have social scientists, on their payroll.
Oh, for sure.
To figure out, what's going to draw somebody's eye to this or that.
I would say that there's probably at least an amateur version of that within the parties here. I'd say that the both parties have
run it by legal,
some marketing and
run it by marketing.
Right. Some marketing and legal assistance to help make sure different parts and pieces, and here are subjects.
How small can we make the fine print?
Right. Yeah, for sure. And how, here are subjects that you shouldn't talk about because it's not good for us. It's not a popular opinion that we do as a party or whatever. So stay away from this topic. Right. Hammer home this topic. This is one that we have data, like the data that they both have. They both told me about it. The data that they have on you, the voter, is ridiculous. They know every single election you voted in, and if it had a primary and you were in the state of Tennessee, they know which primary you picked up.
Yeah. How much red, white, and blue is too much?
Right.
How many flags is too many?
They know, and they have an algorithm that kicks out what they believe are the top issues for you as an individual. You as an individual, not your neighborhood, not this section of town. You as an individual. They have. Matt told me my 5. It's months ago that we had this conversation. Yeah. But Matt told me like my 5 top issues according to their database, and it was 3. 3 of them were probably right. It had one of my higher ones, like his campaign finance reform. It's like I wouldn't be mad if it was something to talk about, but it's not something that's going to sway me significantly. It's not a game changer for me. It's not a single issue kind of thing for me. And like we could have Matt, and Matt would look it up for you too. Matt can tell you exactly what you voted in and where you voted and all sorts of crazy stuff. And right. They have that on every single one of us. And they go through and, Lauren running for District 2 or whatever, they're going to sit down with Lauren and they're like, these are issues and these are voters here. And as Chris Davis said, you only have to do a couple thousand people and you're good to go. Right. The city turnout is terrible on this one specifically, the non-mayoral year. Because so all the city races are odd number years, and then every other one's a mayor run. So this one's the mayor run or the mayor free city council races. That's all that's on this ballot. There's only 5 ballots, one for each 5. Yeah, 5 of the 6 districts in the city are getting elected this year. And so it's weird too. Like I don't know how I feel about it. The way the city does their elections. So they do an August primary, November general, but like you're in district. What district are you in the city? You're county district 2. No. Shit. Maybe you're Tommy Smith, district 2. You're district 2. I'm pretty confident. And Tommy Smith is your rep right now. So Lauren Ryder is not running for district 2. I conflated that wholly. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Whatever Tommy Smith is your district. And he's running this year. And so when you go in August for your primary, you have one item on your ballot. And it's literally going to be the 4 or 5 people that are running for that district seat in August. Then when you go back in November for the general, you will have 5 items on your ballot, and that's it. So you'll have one item with 5 or 6 people. Top 2 on that one stay on the ballot. And then when you come back in November, you get to vote for District 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. So you only primary your district.
Me being in the city gets to vote on.
If you're a city resident, right? If you're a city resident, you get to vote on every district.
Huh.
And that was put in place years ago. I can't remember. Chris told me who it was, but it was to make sure that one district couldn't put a radical on city council. and so Seema, who's District 3, I think there were 4 in the primary, and I can't remember. He told me the name. I forgot the guy's name who won the primary handily. Like he had like 65% of the primary. She had like 25, and then the 2 or 3 other people only had a few percent. Right. In the district, but then when it went to citywide, she won the citywide race. And so,
it's weird.
Yeah, but then school boards,
radicals, like that's anti-American,
right? And school board's even weirder because school board does kind of the same thing, except if you win your primary by more than 50%, you're the only person on the general. So if there's 3 people that run for District 4 in school board, in the primary, it'll be voted down. It's supposed to vote down to top 2, but if one of the people of the 3 get more than 50%, then they're the only one that goes on to the general ballot. But you still in county elections, you only vote for your district both in primary and in the general. You don't get to vote. I'm in District 4. I don't get to vote in District 6 in the general.
Well, they better fix that, or else you could elect a radical.
They could elect a radical. But hell, I mean, Chris was saying. The 2022, there's going to be 60-something items on that ballot as of right now.
So some have been rolled back.
No, it's just like a bunch of fee offices and judges. It's going to be a big old mess. And so, but yeah, mayors. The mayor will be on there. The sheriff will be on there. Both at-large seats in commission, 2 other commission seats. And then like law director, like 7 judges, a bunch of like county clerk's offices, property assessor. There's like a ton of stuff coming up on the next county election. And so you're going to go for city residents, you're going to go from this election, which you're going to have 1 item on a primary, 5 on your general, to like 100 items on your primary and then 60 on your general. And that's not including if there's any charter amendments. That's not including if there's any other ballot items that get added, similar to the law director one we had last time. Whether that one gets revisited, or I go real crazy and we go to decriminalize pot in county as a like it's insane. Did you listen to that part of the Chris Davis?
They've been on the.
It's done it before. The problem is, I mean, the real problem is, and whoever pulled it off before is amazing. I need to figure out who that person is that did it last time. Oh, unless it was a commission, because the commission and the charter committee, they can put stuff on. They don't have to go through as much of a process. But if I want to put something on the ballot, I have to pull my petition with all the information on it, and like I need to hire a lawyer to write it out in the proper language, right. Submit it to the election commission, and then I have to go collect 30,000 signatures in 90 days.
Yeah, I remember him talking about that.
That's fucking nuts.
I'm saying you probably get more, just because there'll be a number that.
Right. There's right. And again, like city specifically being the example, there's 186,000 city of Knoxville residents. Less than, like, I think 89,000 or so is what he said were registered voters. Yeah. And according to Matt, there's not the not of age to vote. Like, I think county-wide, it's like 35-40% isn't of our population is under 18. Mm-hmm. But in the city, it's like 10%. Like, the city has way less younger residents. So city, there as a percentage, there are more city eligible voters or of voting age, but way less registered. And so I pitched it Brian Hornback. I was like, "Hey man, I got a story for you if you want to run it. It doesn't make sense for me to run it." And so it's like, I thought it was funny. The idea being that for the Republicans to win city races, they need to increase voter turnout, which is like backwards. It's all the time where the Republicans are the ones that are trying to decrease turnout because it works better for them. But in this case, it would go the other way because the people that are voting in the city currently are voting for Democrats. And if the Republicans want to win city seats, they need to get turnout up of Republicans in the city, right. Which Matt doesn't think they exist. I'm curious to watch the show. It'll be interesting as it breaks down, for me at least, as I'm getting crazy on it.
Yeah, I mean, it sounded like they were going to have to try to figure something out for their desire to get more of the GOP in the city council.
Yeah. But again, it's like it's one of those, you have such a low turnout race that it's got turnout's the only thing that I think the GOP can win with is turnout. Is getting city residents that are either scared of socialists or whatever that they're going to play that card on, or the GOP puts good candidates that city residents like and talk good policy that city residents like and get them out to vote. Right. I don't know. I mean, I again, like Chris said, it's on a non-mayor run. It's a hard sell to get people out to vote. And he's like, we make it too easy. We make it too easy for them not to. And then Matt's sitting here telling me that it's hard to vote. I'm like, I have the guy that does the voting thing. He's like, it's pretty. We make it pretty damn easy.
It depends on who you ask.
I don't know.
I mean, a lot of low-income people, may work 2-3 jobs.
Yeah, but I mean, we as a state and a county specifically always have early voting now. Like it is every election will have early voting. And he's like Chris was talking about. It's like for our cost per vote for city elections is astronomical compared to county elections. Yeah. Because so few people vote. We put the same amount of stuff out. It's just nobody votes.
Right. You have to have the people there just in case. You get an influx of people.
And he's like, I can't remember what district he said, but like he said, I don't know. Anyway, point is the turnout sucks. So for you city listeners out there, we've
talked about turnout in general has been poor all throughout the U.S.
Yeah,
we're not unique.
Here's one.
Even in other countries as well.
Here's one that I got in an argument with Matt about. Does simply voting count as engagement, like as real engagement with the system? If all you do is vote? I guess my argument was that like an uneducated vote, it doesn't count as engagement to me. If you're just walking in the door, checking the D boxes because you always check the D boxes, I don't feel like that counts as engagement.
Yeah, I mean, if you go in with that mindset of you're just going to vote down party,
or I don't know who's on the ballot at all, and I'm just going to go check boxes and say I'm engaged, and then
that name makes it sound like they're a nice person.
Right? Yeah. Oh, I saw a sign on the side of the road. I have no idea what they stand for, but I saw that sign, so I'm going to vote for this person. Right. Like, I don't really feel like that's engagement. That's, I don't know, sleepwalking, for lack of a better word, through the process.
Yeah, I could see it both ways.
And I guess it's better than nothing. It's better than complete 100% apathy, but at the same time, like, you're going to walk out you walk out of the polling station like, I voted today, I'm a good person. No. I don't know if I agree with that. If you don't have any knowledge of what you're voting on or who you're doing. Like, I mean, again, like going back, I meant to ask Chris when he was here about it, what the numbers were, and we could look it up, I guess, what the numbers were on that law director thing. Mm-hmm. Because it was so weirdly worded.
Yeah, were there people that just left it blank? They're like, I don't know what the fuck
I would have loved to have done an exit poll and stand outside a polling station and ask people if they want to. If you'd like to, could you tell me whether you voted yes or no on the law director decision? And when they said they voted yes, follow that with, do you understand that by voting yes, you're voting to take your right to vote for that person away? I would strongly argue that more than to BAC for a second, 51% of the people that voted yes on that thought they were voting to keep the ability to vote, right? Because it was worded so poorly. And again, not that we're the best source on the planet, but we spent multiple episodes clarifying that point, and I'm pretty sure you still did it wrong.
I can't remember.
We were talking about it. We were talking about it shortly after. And I was like, did you vote yes? You're like, yeah, I think so. It's like, then you voted no. He's like, what? You're like, anyway, that's what I'm saying. Like, it'd be great to be the source that, like, everybody's like, hey, we're gonna learn about our candidates through Almost an Agreement because those guys do good interviews. Right. That'd be awesome. But, just like stuff like that where it took a good bit of effort to try to figure out exactly what we were looking at before I could definitively say, this is what yes means, this is what no means. And somebody that takes zero effort going in, walking in, and reading it for the first time, 9 times out of 10 is going to do it backwards on one that was worded the way that one was. And I think that's shitty.
So what's the remedy?
Well, one, I think they should have a layman's wording. I think they should do this is specifically what's going in, because again, I understand that a lot of times on an item like that, it is written in the language that it's what it's going to do. It's going to take out a phrase or a paragraph of the charter and replace it with this. And that's why it was worded the way it was, because that's literally what would have happened. If the votes were yes, that section on that would have been pasted over a section in the charter. That's why it was worded that way, and I get that. But it shouldn't have been a difficult thing to me to say next to it or beside it or inside the box that it's in. Voting yes means you want the mayor to appoint the law director. Voting no means you want to vote for the law director. That's simple. Wouldn't have taken that much space, but that gets the point across. Same thing on the how much the mayor's allowed to spend without commission approval thing. I understand that it's worded in the way it's worded because that's how it's going to go into the charter. But right next to it being like, are you okay with the mayor spending this much money without oversight from the commission? And just a little bit of just a tweak clarification for the simple people out there that have to vote and don't have the time to do the research that we did. What else? Kentucky LP kicking ass, taking names. You've heard that story?
No.
Well, I guess what we should start on this one. Have you heard about the COVID-19, the vaccine passport conversation?
A little bit.
How do you feel about it? What do you know about it? Let's start with there.
There's a lot of people afraid that the U.S. is going to implement. But it seems like fear-mongering to me. But.
There's real conversation. There's real conversation in the White House about having a vaccine passport, which is literally a piece of paper or a digital something that you as a citizen will need to carry with you, like your ID, to be able to do certain things, like go to a movie, go to a baseball game, anything that's been on the no-no list the last year, basically. Mass gatherings, maybe going to restaurants. I don't know the specific full list.
I can see more as being
flying on planes.
Like a fast pass for that. It's like you could get pre-screening.
If that's the case, that's different. Right. I'm that I might be okay with. If like,
just saving you time.
If they want to put a thing together that says, if you got the vaccine and you want to do this thing, so that when you go to the stadium or whatever, you could just scan your ticket and go right in. And for those people that don't have this thing,
do a rapid test or something.
Right, you have to go through this side to do a rapid. But I mean, is that the state of this virus, that it's going to be around forever? That's how we're going to function?
We don't know that. It's possible.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. That part I don't know what to do with, but I'm just saying like that makes more sense to me that I should be. I don't know. Again, it goes back to my teacher argument there. By midsummer, if you haven't been vaccinated by midsummer, that is an active choice to not be vaccinated. The availability should be there by all measure as far as we understand it right now. Right. If you choose to not get vaccinated, you assume said risk. If the vaccine is doing what it's supposed to be doing, and we have the percentages up to a certain amount, that percentage left that's choosing not to get vaccinated shouldn't be able to do any real damage. So what's the point of this vaccine passport again?
I don't know much about it.
That's the problem with it. Is like if Part A is working, then what's the point of Part B? Because Part B is the fail safe because Part A doesn't work. Well, if Part A doesn't work, then what are we talking about? I guess that's my concern with it. I mean, it's also like HIPAA's a thing. You have a right to privacy with your health. And if this passport does what it's supposed to, it would be a requirement for. It wouldn't be an option to. It would be a requirement to take part in certain activities that you have to have the vaccine for. And you have to be prove that you've had it.
I don't know if this is a starting point, to where, both sides are going to have to meet in the middle somewhere. So you start at an extreme to where you've got some room to give on both ends. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the way a lot of politics go.
Yeah, I don't know if this is one of the things.
Postulating.
One of the things, as I understand it, is this is not something that's going to go through law like that. It's going to go through like
businesses are allowed to require something.
All right, so this is from, what is this? Washington Post. Headline: Vaccine passports are on the way, but developing them won't be easy. I don't care about that. I don't want to. The Biden administration and private companies are working to develop a standard way of handling credentials, often referred to as a vaccine passport. That would allow Americans to prove that they have been vaccinated against the novel coronavirus. The effort has gained momentum with Biden's pledge that the nation will start to regain normalcy this summer with a growing number of companies from cruise lines to sport teams. Yeah, you can't go on a cruise without your vaccine passport.
Now, what does that say? With a growing number of companies from cruise lines to sports teams saying they will require. This isn't at the behest of the government. This is the company saying that they are going to require proof of vaccination.
I mean, if you go back
maybe that's cutting out liability.
And you go back to the first sentence, and it says the Biden administration and private companies are working to develop. So
a way to develop a way of handling credentials, not of requiring.
Right. So it's an official state credential.
I don't know. Maybe there's businesses that have asked their senators and Congress people for this.
The administration.
I think you're automatically taking one viewpoint of this.
Okay, sure. I don't disagree that I'm biased in this conversation. The administration's initiative has been driven largely by arms of the Department of Health and Human Services, including an office devoted to health information technology, said 5 officials. The White House this month took a bigger role in coordinating government agencies involved in the work, led by Jeff Zients. The White House declined to answer questions about the passport initiative, instead pointing to public statements from that guy. The initiative, anyway, that's my concern with it. That's where I'm at on it. They're expected to be free and available through applications for smartphones, which could display a scannable code. Other countries are already doing it, grappling with a array of challenges, including data privacy, healthcare equity. That was the joke that one of my podcast guys was saying. It's like, well, if you have to have a smartphone,
right,
this is going to disproportionately affect poor people. And how's a poor person, even if they have the vaccine, supposed to have a vaccine passport if they don't have a smartphone? Which is kind of a bullshitty statement because a lot of people have smartphones that don't. Right.
Pretty sure when you get the vaccine, you get a card. I keep seeing.
Yeah, but again,
pictures of theirs.
My understanding, the point of this is to have the official digital database to refer to that the card does, because the card doesn't mean anything.
Apparently, the government keeps asking people to stop doing that because they're worried people are going to take that screenshot
right, exactly.
or whatever and be able to print out their own.
And that's one of the things that this is trying to protect against, the people that make copies and stuff and have fake, counterfeit vaccination cards. That there will be a database specifically that has a list of every American that has the coronavirus vaccine. Are we cool with that database existing?
The health department already has it.
They have vaccines that we got when we were kids, yeah.
Yeah, any vaccine, that you get is reported back to the health department.
Are we cool
that I go to my primary care physician?
Are we cool if the health department gives that away willy-nilly to any business that asks for it? So, like, the University of Tennessee says, hey, I need health department records because I need to be able to verify that people coming to the football game all have their vaccines. Is that the world we want to go start moving towards? Not students going to this university. Me and you going to a football game.
I'm trying to remember whether there was something that we had talked about before where police were cross-referencing a certain database. They kind of had like this two-step verification where, the police didn't have the name of whoever, but they were able to scan. I don't remember what topic it was.
I have a hard time believing that whether there's a good, well set up thing that the normal Joe cop or whomever can't access more information than they should allow to have access to for the particular thing in place, that if the database exists, it will be used and not just for the purposes given. Like, Snowden kind of proved that game.
Right.
And we didn't give a shit. We're okay with the fact that he's in hiding and is high on the public enemy list to the United States government. He's hiding in Russia because, he told us all that the government was spying on us, and we're mad at him for giving away our secrets instead of mad at the government for stealing our secrets.
Right. We entrust a lot of people with sensitive information. The bank teller has got a lot of fucking information on you that they have access to.
Right. That's not the same as the government having that information.
You were talking about businesses having access to databases,
right? But on the Snowden thing, I wasn't talking about. But yes, but our health data is a different level of data. I would argue, like your finances and stuff like that. Like
I would argue, you can do more with
sure,
people's finances.
Sure, you could maybe, but I don't know. Does this bring us to the point where what the bank wants to see?
What malfeasance can you do with someone's health records? I mean, outside of your birthplace, right, again, and things like that.
But this goes back to the "it's none of your business" period argument for me, because I don't know. There's no better way to argue it. It's none of their business. It's none of anybody's business. That's why we have HIPAA regulations. That's why when my wife's sick and I ask the doctor what's going on, he can't answer that without express written consent from her to tell me things.
Talk to your internet service provider. Talk to ad agencies that have all sorts of information on you.
Okay, because I don't like it that way either. But that's not what we're talking about.
I don't like it either. But at this point, a lot of that's already out there.
Okay, well, I guess we can't do anything about it. We just live with it.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, then what are you saying? Like, that's what drives me. Like, what are you pushing back on me for? Because I take exception to the idea that more data out there for more people on me is not. I'm not okay with it.
I'm just giving you perspective. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just talking about other viewpoints.
I hate that. I hate that viewpoint. It goes back to that. Well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then you don't worry about it. It's like, it doesn't matter whether I'm doing anything wrong or not. It goes back to our gun conversation earlier. It doesn't matter if I'm doing anything wrong or not. It's none of your business. Whomever you are. It's not the cop's business. It's not the school board's business. It's not the mill and mine's business on my health history. Right. It's none of their fucking business. I want to go to a concert. Am I allowed to go to a concert or not? Well, not if you have a special health history. It's like, at what point does it go to the next level where banks are looking through my vaccine records to make sure that I'm healthy enough to live through the term of the fucking mortgage?
Banks wouldn't do it. Your insurance or loan
whatever, something like that. Like when that just becomes like, well, you're not allowed to buy a house. Why am I not allowed to buy a house? Because you can't get insured. Why can't I get insured? Because you have health factors that you're not going to survive long enough to pay this house off, and so we know you're going to default on the loan, or you're statistically likely to default on this loan because you're not going to live long enough to see the end of it. So you're not allowed to buy a house anymore because you have health issues. That's why HIPAA exists. It's none of your business. It's none of anybody's business how my physical health is. That's the only argument at play. It's just none of your business. And this goes on in the same thing for me. And I get it. I get it with the old vaccines. I get it. And I struggle to justify that as well. But it wasn't my choice. I was a kid, and that's the way that part is. And I vaccinated my kids too, to be fair. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. But this one I take a little bit of exception with. I'm a little concerned about it. We developed the best, most effective vaccine in the history of time in 9 months. And we're not worried about long-term side effects. We're not worried about anything else going on right now. It's more important that we get the vaccine in people. Which, again, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that as a premise. But when it starts getting into this, okay, it's not obligated by law. You don't have to get the vaccine. But if you want to live as a human being and function in the society, you have to get the vaccine. So maybe it's not mandatory, but it's kind of mandatory. And that concerns me with something that is as young as this one. Like mumps and measles, rubella has been around for 100 fucking years. It's got a lot of data on it that there's the long-term side effects and all that kind of stuff that are potential issues with taking medications or vaccines or whatever have been well studied. All right, I am informed enough to take to take the risk of, or to understand that there's a very small risk of problems. We don't have that right now. We just don't. It can't exist yet. It's too soon. And I acknowledge people that, especially older folks that are more likely to have issues and all that kind of stuff, wanting to get it without that set of data because they're not going to live long enough to know that data's, if some weird side effect happens in 10 years, they're probably going to be dead anyway because they're 90 right now. I understand that premise and that thought process, and I'm okay with that. But when it comes to me and it becomes a mandatory thing, I'm a little bit skeptical to just go get the shot. I understand you said you're going to get it. Max has gotten it. AC's gotten it. But, I don't know. I'm mad about the way they're doing the distribution because I'm low on the list, just because it makes me feel like I'm not worth anything to the state. But at the same time, I remember saying it when they first started rolling out. One of the interviews, it's like, I'm not mad that I'm low on the list because I want to give it as much time as I can before I get it. Because I don't feel like I'm generally at high risk, despite some of my my weight issues and smoking / vaping or all the other stuff that could contribute to making this thing worse. Right. And again, I can't imagine that I haven't already had it yet. If it's as easily spreadable and all that stuff, I've been in it all the fucking time. If this many people have had it and it's this easy to transfer and all this different stuff and the asymptomatics and stuff like that, there's no way. It just doesn't make sense to me that I haven't picked it up. What is the one most frequented place since this thing began?
Grocery stores.
And I'm in 10 a day. all over town. How did I not get exposed to it at this point?
I understand your logic.
I mean, and so I'm not dead yet. I haven't gotten really sick yet. I mean, and to be fair, with all the masking and stuff, I didn't get my usual like midwinter cold. I don't think. Maybe. I don't remember. If I got it, it was a mild one this year. Like I usually get something. I usually have a week or so that I'm just kind of like for a couple of days and all snotty.
Like nasal drainage, but it's also a lot of temperature changes, fall allergies. Now we're coming into spring allergies.
Yeah. Yeah, like that's one of the things I've seen the joke 1,000 times. It's like some of us have allergies. Some of us have sneezed because we have allergies, not because we have the coronavirus. Quit giving me the death stare. And
was sneezing a symptom?
I don't know. What wasn't a symptom? That symptom list was pretty damn long. But and then again too, it's like going back to the Board of Health thing, cow war, and all that stuff, and everybody all bent into shape about it. I've gone into 1,000 grocery stores through the last year, and the quality of masks and mask wearing that you see on display out in public, like my favorite I've seen all year was a full face shield, just like a plexiglass face shield thing, no mask, just a face shield, which by the mandate doesn't count because it has to be a cloth face covering. And then the lady had it's like these two little fans on a neck wrap, like the battery goes around your neck, and it's got the two little goosenecks. These two little fans.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw infomercials for that shit.
These two little fans blowing air up under her mask.
Yeah.
So it's like, so what are you doing right now? I mean, it might be nice. It might that the shield might keep that cool air on your face a little bit longer, but you're not doing anything for what the point of wearing that thing was in the first place. And noses count, and
that's just somebody going through the motions,
right?
Where they can still go in,
right? And so,
but again, most places weren't enforcing it because
right,
they didn't want to be that asshole.
And so, how much do we really feel like masks have been effective since the proper wearing and usage and all that kind of different stuff was? I don't know.
I think there's been enough adherence.
I'd be curious.
It's hard to prove it one way or the other.
Right. I'd be curious if there's any data on what percentage of people wearing masks were actually wearing them in an effective way. Or had even effective masks on in the first place. Like gaiters don't really count, right. But a lot of people like gaiters because they're more comfortable. Those poor unfortunate souls like myself who need to wear glasses all the time, there's no mask that works functionally at all. Well,
mine does.
Because every time I breathe, like I've gotten a little better.
You just need that little metal piece that goes over your nose. Yeah, that's all it is. It's warm air escaping out of the top of your mask, which is why they say for your mask to be on properly, you're not feeling that air coming in or around the outside of your mask.
Right. But the bigger problem I have with it is to get that thing on my nose, the little wire part on my nose correctly to keep that seal-ish thing there. My glasses can't sit. They have to sit on top of the mask and then they slide off. Like my glasses won't sit behind that line on my nose so that it helps secure it in place.
So buy new glasses. I don't know.
Right.
Mine don't do it, but I've got the little
knobberdoodles.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one of these
padded gel things.
That's the struggle I've had with my glasses and masks is that I can't it just, and then I broke my glasses at one point. So one of my arms is all wonky. So they hold on even less. And so I need to get some, you're not wrong. I need to buy some new glasses, but not because of the mask, just because my glasses are old. But I don't know. It's just, I'm very concerned for how this is going to finish out. Like I want it to be done, and I'm like many people out there, I want this to be over with, but I don't like this vaccine passport as a solution. I don't like mandated this vaccine being mandated. It's too young. We don't know the long-term effects, and that's fine. And if you want to get it, not knowing the long-term effects, that is your decision, and I'm not going to fault you for it. But when it gets to a mandated and we don't have long-term effect understanding, that's where I'm a little concerned. Or if it gets to this passport thing where you can't do anything if you haven't been vaccinated.
How do you feel about all the pharmaceuticals that have all these crazy side effects that are still prescribed by doctors?
I think that's a problem. I mean, I really do. When you got I think it's
there was a major brand antacid that apparently was causing some crazy fucked up shit. The doctors finally said, they're like, no, stop taking that.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes to the question, it's like, what's the ethical, I mean, there's an ethics issue for the doctor prescribing it because the doctor knows these side effects are real. or they should know they're real.
I love all the new ones that come out. They're like, if you're allergic to blah, 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 please don't take it. It's like,
Right. How do I know I'm allergic to it?
I'm allergic to it.
Right. Or anything that's in it. I don't know what's in it.
Right.
Is it soy based? I mean, I'm allergic to soybeans, so is it soy based? I don't know. Yeah, because that's what. Yeah, and and again, like we had a whole big chunk of one of the shows back in the day where we were talking about Viagra, and it's off label because that's another one of the things that medicines and doctors do with medicines. They prescribe off label, and and so I don't know, like despite the pandemic being in the background of this entire show since we started, we had a couple of shows where we started talking about the medical industry as a whole, but we've kind of fallen off that topic, and it may be time to revisit because
healthcare.
I mean, it's just because I mean, Medicare for all or single payer systems, all these different, I mean, it's still a major political conversation issue. But at the same time, like I'm glad it's kind of fallen off for us because for me at least, I've been able to get more to, that's not a local thing per se. That's not something that Knox County is going to put out. Knox County residents have a social medical system inside county. It's not something that we're going to handle locally. It's only going to come through a federal thing. And since I've been trying to stay more local in politics talk on the show, even though our shows, when it's us, it tends to be more national stuff. But for the most part, I'm trying to stay local. That was something Scott was saying that was interesting. Have you been on the colloquially as of late?
Colloquial? No.
I told him I couldn't say it either. So, also Scott has better hair.
Practice.
Colloquial.
Colloquial.
With the
with me. Colloquial
with the Randy Pace issue. Randy Pace just all of a sudden.
I heard you guys referencing that. I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, he just came in at it like he doesn't like. I've been we've been subscribers for like a year now. I got to see if we need to re-up it. We might be due for a re-up.
You got to set up your automatic payments.
I'll do a whole episode on how to subscribe to Compass for you guys with video and all that stuff. So you can. I'll probably accidentally put my credit card number out and then we're fucked.
And click here.
But
take your mouse.
I don't remember like in the almost year that. I didn't realize they had a group until like 5 months ago. So I've only been in the group for like 5 months. But as long as I've been in the group, I don't remember seeing Randy post much at all. And then like out of nowhere, like a week ago, he starts dropping he drops like 3 or 4 like very divisive, like something about
maybe it was far from it in his previous position.
This Tennessee Star. Well, no, that was the thing that Scott was talking about last night. Is that it's a subscribers only, so people that subscribers only people that are supposed to be in the group. And Randy had been a subscriber, but he let it lapse. He chose to not continue, but they let him stay because he was the chair. Well, he's not the chair anymore. He's still the immediate past chair, so he's still on the top echelon of the county party. And so there was a whole conversation about whether or not Scott and Jesse should kick him out of the group because he's not a subscriber anymore. But yeah, like I think it was like Mayor can know nothing was the headline on one of the articles you shared or whatever. And and I don't know. According to Kyle as well, there's some city budget issues that are worth looking into. Apparently, according to the city mayor's office treasurer or whatever the title is or whatever, that with their spending and stuff and how they're got different stuff planning out, they got like 3 or 4 years before they're going to be in the red, and they're going to be outspending city tax collections, even with what's projected, as growth in city residents and growth in tax revenues and stuff comes in. They're projecting that they're going to be outspending what they're collecting fairly soon. And so there's a question on whether or not the city's going to have to start raising taxes on city property tax or not, and how that's going to play out. Metro.
I think Todd's mentioned it. He was talking about raising the
property tax
by he's like, even just 2 cents.
But that was county. He was because he was running for county commission, but he wanted it for county. Yeah. And I get it. Sure. Like I think it's I understand why the way it's set up the way it is. Like it's
people in cities would still pay that county tax, correct?
Yes. Yeah. But it doesn't go to the city budget. It goes to the county budget. But
that's messed up.
No, the city gets the city has
specifically a county tax,
right? And the city has a separate property tax on top of that. So if you live in the city, you pay city property and county property tax.
Yeah. We get free trash.
Yeah, I get free trash too.
I swear they made the bin smaller though.
I go to the transfer station and I throw them in the back of my truck, and I go to the transfer station out there by Lovell Road and Pillissippi, and I get free trash too.
It's true. It just costs you a little gas money.
Yeah. Well, luckily, like incidentally for me, I go right by there twice a week for work anyway, or I throw it in the back of my truck and I do it at one of the shops when I'm at the shop. That's what I did today. I had 2 bags I threw away at the North Store today. But yeah, so city budget thing, and I found that extra interesting when I had the baseball people in here. I keep forgetting her name. It was Chris Caldwell from the county, Mark Manitos, the bond guy, and then Stephanie Welch. So for the baseball stadium, there's a city and a county portion that they're going to have to pay out of taxes. The county's going to pay out of the hotel motel tax. The city doesn't know where they're going to pay for it yet. And then they're also projecting they're going to be out of money soon. It's like, well, $600,000 is not much for your budget. I get it. But you're already thinking you're not going to have enough money a couple years down the road. And you're adding this thing, even though it's small, because you don't know how you're paying for it yet. So that's going to be interesting as far as when because budget season is coming up is what they like to say. So we'll have sheriff's office budget, city budget, county budget, state budget, school board budget, all coming out here in the next couple.
I'd say you delve deep enough into any budget, you'll find all sorts of crazy waste and money misspent.
Obviously not, because I can't imagine that it's not being. Well, I can, and I guess that's the problem. I would like to think that somebody would have exposed it already. Like I'd be very disappointed. I'd be excited for us, but I'd be very disappointed.
Well, as it's been noted, you're the one that knows most about the school budget,
right.
And even then, it's so convoluted.
Right.
Money going this way, and then it collects interest on this. The interest goes here.
Right. And that was something that Kyle brought up.
Rebated for this.
Talking about interest and stuff. All this there's the coronavirus money that this county is going to get from the federal, through the state from the federal government. It's like 90-something million. And then apparently there's the Biden administration is working through an infrastructure project that's supposed to be like $3 trillion, and we're supposed to get like we're estimated to get like 160, 200 million of that here. And how that's going to work inside our budget, adding those things to it. And Kyle actually had an interesting idea: is take if because it's federal stuff, so there's all sorts of strings attached what you can and can't do with it. It's like if we're allowed to put $250 million in the bank and use that interest, just leave it in the bank, make it our rainy day fund, whatever we want to call it, but just take the interest and let the interest go into the standard budget, so we have just a new income source. Don't spend the money, just use the interest that the money generates. Don't know exactly how much that would be. The math's bad, and interest rates are terrible right now, so it might not be that. The interest rate might not be enough to be worth it.
Put it in treasury bills.
But yeah, I mean, it could be it could be a way to add income to the county without adding taxes.
I could see they may be able to do that, if they kind of pre-wrote it in, like, hey, we're setting this money aside, and it will still go towards the whatever legal avenues that money has to be that's diverted to.
Right. Apparently, that's what everybody's talking about. The school board's talking about.
You could assure that money will still go to.
Right. The school board's talking about the same thing. They're getting a bunch of federal money, and they're waiting for whomever in the federal government to tell them how they're allowed to spend it and what the strings are and all this kind of different shit. And so that's kind of what everybody's doing. And it's just like the PPP loan was the first time around. It's like, here's a bunch of money, everybody. What can we do with it? Don't know. When are you going to know? I don't know. We're still working on it. So go spend the money, and then we'll figure out if you spent it okay or not. That's really what's going on right now. It's like if you need to spend the money right now because you need to for your business or whatever.
Yeah, there were some businesses that weren't as hard up at that time. But a lot of restaurants, they're living kind of month to month, depending on what their business has been.
Yeah.
Outside of pandemic, there are lots of restaurants that operate on a shoestring budget.
Yeah. But yeah, then it's just like, like a restaurant couldn't buy food with it by rule, but that might have been the only cash they had at the time, is to buy food, get the restaurant restocked and get working, and then pay from future sales for payroll, and then say that they spent the PPP money on payroll. And they roundabout way to use the PPP money the way it ended up being correct, but it's just one of those weird isms. It's like you're going to give.
That's done a lot in business.
Yeah, and that's what it's going to be. That's what we're going to do in the county and stuff too.
$5 accountants for.
Right, you got to move that money however you. But that's what they're talking about in the county. It's like luckily we're not in a position where we have to spend that money right now on anything.
Right.
Like we're okay. Our sales taxes, our revenues have been fairly normal.
We've still got our rainy day fund.
And stuff like that in county. And so, we're allowed to, we are in a position where we can just set that money aside and leave it there until we get instruction. So we don't spend it incorrectly and then get penalized for it or have to pay it back or some of the different penalties for using the money incorrectly. So that's kind of a cool thing that's going on in county, in my opinion. But yeah, I don't know. Like there's too many parts and pieces. And yes, you're correct. It's not okay that I'm the smartest person in Knoxville about school board budgets. Smartest person not on the school board,
right.
Or a teacher. Maybe there's some teachers that know better than me or not. I don't know, but it's
I'd be curious to reach out, to teachers. Because you hear about some teachers saying they don't have money for this and don't have money for that, and you hear the stories of teachers every year having to go and buy tissue paper and hand sanitizer and crayons and markers.
All right, that's why I'm interested because Ron McPherson said he will send me the draft budget as soon as they have one. Like they're working on it right now, but they haven't congealed it into one big thing. It's all the different departments have all their different parts and pieces. All the different schools are doing all their different stuff. But it'll get piled into one unified budget here in a couple weeks. And then that budget will get tweaked and tweaked and tweaked. And then once the school board agrees on it, then it goes to the mayor's office and the commission for approval. And then if it's, if everything checks out, commission and the mayor approves it, school board budget set. Yeah. So I'll be getting a draft copy of that, and I'm looking forward to try to not understanding anything of what I'm looking at. Like, what does this mean? And I talked to Virginia Babb about it. I was like, hey, I need to get you back in the show. I haven't talked to you in a while. She's like, okay. I was like, when's that budget coming out? She's like, I don't know. I haven't got it yet. And then I emailed Ron, and he told me he'd give me one in a couple weeks. I was like, well, Ron told me he's going to send me a copy of that draft budget as soon as you guys have one. You want to come on when that's here, and we can kind of go over it. And you can help me understand what some of these different expenses are and stuff like that. She's like, sure. It's like, cool. That'll be a fun show, or a really hard show. A lot of the money shows are hard shows.
She's on the school board, or
yeah, she's District 4's school board member.
Didn't know if she was their financial officer or whatever.
No, that's Ron. That is Ron. And then Jennifer Owen is another school board member that came on with Ron last time he was here. I got some clarification on how Sunshine Law works. Since Ron McPherson is an employee of the state, he's not an elected official. He is allowed to have a private conversation with an elected official one at a time.
I vaguely remember when that happened, 15 years ago or so.
I'm curious I don't know this one, and I need to ask somebody if is city council and a county commissioner allowed to talk to each other? Because the way I understand it, it's any elected officials are not allowed to speak privately, basically.
There has to be at least 3 of them or something.
Right, or it has to be public, where people can listen, which I don't know if this counts as it or not. Maybe I need to do that, and maybe I need to reach out to the Buck. It's like 6 U's law director.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to reach out to him and have him come on the show, and we can talk about some of the stuff like that.
That was interesting. I think it was on the county commission's website. I guess they listed, and maybe it is just so they can have public forums, but it was 2 or 3 commissioners that were going to meet at a restaurant that was completely open to the public.
Yeah,
I didn't know the premise behind it. If it was they were going to try to have an official meeting, but also have it open to the public.
They have to have
it was supposed to be kind of a meet and greet as well.
No, I think it's supposed to. It's just like they have like a it was Courtney and Kyle here back to back, and I talked to both about it separately because they just crossed paths here because they were very conscious of we're not allowed to do stuff. It's like okay. Like I don't count as public enough, I guess. Like it has to be open to the public and announced to the public with a certain amount of time.
Right.
And so, but like if there's some project or it's some ordinance that they want to put in place and they're trying to build the coalition on it and they're trying to sell, so we'll say Larson has an ordinance that he wants to put into place and he's got some project that he wants to do and it's going to specifically go into District 4. So he wants to talk to Kyle about it to see what District 4 thinks about it. He'd have to announce that meeting, and then they'd have to do it publicly, and then, so you can't, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense, because it's like, get some behind closed doors handshake things going on, and it's like, well, how did it get to be placed right here?
Right.
Oh, well, Kyle lobbied Larson to get it, because he wants it in his district, so he can be like, hey, guys, see what I did for you? District 4, yay, or whatever. Yeah.
Essentially, that in one article, it was talking about the voucher bill.
When did you send me that? I need to go back and find it because I don't remember it.
A week or so ago. I had to do when I was trying to dig into figuring out what was the latest on the,
the FBI raid
of, I think it was Glenn Cassida, maybe.
Yeah. Well, because apparently one of the issues with the voucher bill that Lee was trying to do, as I understand it, was like they're not allowed to do stuff in specific counties or regions of the state. It has to be statewide. Like you can't. And so I guess I don't think it was. I don't know that if it was nefarious or not, but the idea was we're going to try this in Shelby County, I think is what it was. They were going to try it in the Memphis area to see how it worked.
Right.
And then if it worked,
pretty common.
Right. And then if it worked, they could do it for the whole state. But apparently like certain things that are, especially when it's very strongly budget related, which the school board is, you can't do things where it's, like if the state education committee puts a mandate in place for teaching evolution in the classroom or whatever, just random whatever. It can't do it just for Shelby County. It has to do it statewide. They can't say only Shelby County schools have to teach evolution. All the other schools can teach creationism or whatever.
Right.
And so that's one of the legal things, as I understand, that was going on with the voucher bill, is that it was maybe nefarious. I don't know, but it was kind of a pilot program idea that they were going to start it in a small section and see what happens.
I think what this article was alluding to is they had tried to pass it the year prior, and it was, say it was a 50-50 split or whatever. Uh-huh. And then all of a sudden the next time it went to pass, it was, 51-49, which was allowed it to pass.
Right. And I know there was some conversation.
There was some nefariousness that went on to get that one last.
And apparently there was like video of Cassidy or whatever, like mid-vote or something like that, going over and talking to somebody to try to persuade them to vote in the way he wanted them to or whatever. And that was some of the allegation at play. I don't know. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear a kind of a full picture version of that story.
Yeah, I'd say it's going to be a while that it'll be under investigation.
Yeah.
Because I think some of the recent things that have come out of the comptroller's office were investigations they've had for like a year or two.
The comptroller? What is the comptroller? Please tell me more about the comptroller.
He's like the financial cop.
I think it's funny that your whole thing with the comptroller and that whole kind of running joke that we've had in shows past, that I had the little the Eddie Manis mini show that I did, and he's specifically working on a bill with the comptroller's office. And I was like, stop, no more talking until you tell me more about what the comptroller's doing. And it's kind of gross. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't dug deeper into it, to be fair. But I mean, it's essentially, and it's extra funny because it's about the carry permit fees. Mm-hmm. So the comptroller's like, those carry permit fees aren't significant. We spend as much money tracking it as we do collecting it.
I heard it was like $2.67 million that we accrue from
permit sales,
renewal, sales and renewals.
Well, because that was one of the arguments people like this. It's going to cost us $2 million a year it's going to cost us $2 million a year to have this permitless carry thing. It's like, no, we're just not going to collect $2 million a year. There's a difference.
Well, apparently the budget or the cost or whatever came out to about $20 million. It was one of the, I don't know if it was the House or the State House or the State Senate live video feed I've been trying to catch some of in the afternoons. Yeah. It's like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays or something. They have it live on PBS.
But anyway, so to finish the first part, Manis was leading the bill on behalf of the comptroller's office to stop auditing the permit collection account because the comptroller's like, it's too much work and it's not that much money. Basically, as I understand, it's like, doesn't sound like no money.
It's not worth our state's money to investigate to find small amounts of possible misuse.
Right. And so, like, because, I guess the comptroller is obligated to, by the state constitution or whatever, audit all these different accounts, and he's asking that this one be removed from his list of duties or whatever, basically.
Yeah, but part of the numbers that came out with the constitutional carry bill was like $20 million. And I think it was the state Senate was trying to figure out, what the other money was. I think it might have even been Cassida that was explaining it that, no, it wasn't Cassida. But a lot of it was increased fees, and it's kind of like a buffer too, because they also strengthened the gun, I guess, penalties for, if you're stealing a gun or I think it's crimes where a gun was involved. So it was increasing the penalties for that as well. So they were kind of like, I guess, buffering in extra money for increased incarceration.
Right. We're not going to get the $100 carrying without a permit fine collected.
That's under the assumption that they're going to be finding more people.
Right. Which all this is out the
increase incarceration.
And a bunch of this is out the window. Like, and again, this the one that Manis is pushing through is out the window in 27 days when Lee signs the permitless carry into fruition. So this whole process that Eddie Manis did to relieve the comptroller from having to audit this account's not going to exist in a month because we don't have to buy a permit anymore. So you're not paying permit fees.
Right.
And I asked him about that. He's like, no, we didn't talk about that part of it. It's like, I mean, this isn't new from the governor's office.
That's what they're saying. If this passed, it was going to cost the state $20 million.
Right. No, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying, like I just thought it was funny that what Eddie Manis was doing on behalf of the comptroller essentially doesn't exist once this permitless carry thing goes through, because that account doesn't exist anymore because we're not collecting permit fees, which we still will because for reciprocity states they don't recognize.
Right, that was what they talked about. They were still encouraging people to get.
Right.
Still
if you want to go out of permit, if you want to go out of state and that state has a reciprocity agreement, you have to have the Tennessee permit. Permitless carry doesn't count.
I've still got a lot of questions about the constitutional carry. I mean, once it is implemented, because it's pretty much it's going to happen. I think it's already on.
Yeah, it's on Lee's desk, and Lee was the one that started it, so it's not like he's going to veto it. Like I saw a petition, like get Lee to veto the permitless carry thing. It's like he started this thing. Why would he veto it? I mean, yes, he should respond if the public overwhelmingly comes out and says this is a bad idea. He should respond to that.
Apparently, the TBI and heads of
police
departments have come out.
Of course, they hate it. Why wouldn't they hate it? I mean,
why do you think they hate it?
Well, because they don't want to deal with armed citizens. It makes their job harder.
Is that not a valid argument?
I don't know. If we're going to go on the assumption that the TBI and all the law enforcement are good and righteous people all the time, then yeah, I guess it's a good thing. But they're not always good and righteous people. They're not just. I mean, we spent a chunk of the show talking about that Chauvin character.
Now we want to be armed to prevent ourselves from cops.
I mean, it doesn't. That's not a here or there. But of course, the police want less armed citizens. Why wouldn't they? It's easier for them to do their jobs. Doesn't mean it's morally or ethically correct. It just means it's easier for them to do their jobs. It's not, and again, it's even on that.
That's kind of the questions I had.
Even on that, it's not to say that I want to keep a gun to protect myself from the police, but if I'm carrying because I want to carry, and because I want to protect myself from other crazy people that are out there, whether they're carrying or not, when something happens and the police arrive, they have to now assume more people have weapons and more people are carrying, and maybe they'll just stop shooting as many people, or maybe they'll shoot more. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there was one congressman or state congressman or senator that got up in response to somebody else. I think it was when I mentioned to you, I was like, it's kind of funny to watch this kind of like polite bickering between the two, because it's just within the federal House and Senate that when you get up and talk to each other, you can't address the person that was just speaking. You always have to address the head of to the chair, the chamber or whatever it's called. Yeah. We basically got up and was trying to retort what another guy brought up, that it was against the constitutional carry. He was like, I hope you change your mind, or Mr. Speaker, I hope my fellow congressman changes their mind, when,
because you got to correct when
somebody constitutionally carrying, stops a mass shooting or prevents a blah 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 from happening.
Right, which is a little bit of, I think that's
a bit of a stretch. And it's like
I think so
we've
too.
had open carry and concealed carry, and how many times I was like, with the Asian things, it's pretty common that most bystanders, don't get involved. Whether, somebody's being bullied or somebody's being beat up, a lot of people are like, I'm not going to get involved in that.
Right.
It's like you're automatically assuming that everybody's going to turn into a
vigilante.
Right.
Right. It's got a bunch of Batman running around.
Right.
Yeah. So
which most people want to carry or are wanting to protect themselves.
Right.
It's kind of funny they're throwing out. They're like, they're going to go out there and save the world.
Well, and if you currently have a carry permit and have gone through the class, actually, I don't even know if I learned this in the class or not, but like there's a real specific set of circumstances when you're allowed to use it.
Right.
Use your gun on any person that is not.
Castle laws. Do you have to have the perceived threat, or can you, seeing two guys running down the road and one guy that's being chased doesn't have a gun, but the person chasing has a gun, who's the bad guy?
Right. And castle law being, that threat is on you.
Right.
Not, something else. That threat is you and your household and your family and stuff like that. So you're walking, that's actually
really... There's a lot of kind of finer points.
Right. It's a really good example. Right. Two people running down the street. Right. Two people running down the street. The first guy doesn't have a gun. The second guy does. You could very easily assume that the second guy is the bad guy.
And it was okay because you had good intentions.
Right. No, and you're right. I agree. That's a really good example.
You thought in your mind, you were conscious, in your heart, you thought that you were preventing a crime.
Right. No, you should be held accountable. I mean, you should be held accountable because you could have the best intentions, but that doesn't make it truth.
Well, that's kind of when it goes into, the police immunity? I can't remember the name of the term. Qualified immunity. To where I think, in their position, as long as they're in the act of doing something good, they're not exactly liable.
No, qualified immunity is just all over gross. It's just dumb. You're a cop, you can do it. As long as it's within the whatever of the protocol and whatever, and it's like, nah.
Right. Yeah, I mentioned when we talked about the no-knock warrants.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, I saw some Dateline special or whatever that was talking about, and they were interviewing all these different people of houses that got busted into, and it was completely the wrong house. But then, that homeowner had no recourse.
Right. We put it to Max specifically. It's like he's got his 1911 next to his bed, I'm pretty sure, when he goes to sleep at night. And if you and I, on a whim, just to fuck with him, kicked his door in and started stomping through his house, we're getting shot.
Right.
He doesn't know if it's the cops. Even if we run in the door yelling cops, well, it's the police.
Right.
We're getting shot, and we should, because we're breaking into his house. That is what a no-knock warrant is, and you don't even need a permit to carry that way. I mean, that's not a carry. You're allowed to have it. You need to be able to legally purchase and own a gun, right. But you don't need to have a carry permit for that situation. But yeah, I don't know. I obviously I don't particularly think the permit's that big a deal because I got one. It wasn't that hard to do. But at the same time, it goes back to it's none of your fucking business. State, police, federal government. It's none of your business what I own, what I do with it, and what I have on me right now. It's just not your business. That's supposed to be part of the whole, freedom of this country kind of thing. Speaking of, did you see the picture I sent the group chat? Speaking of freedom.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Up at the old Powell Airport's got a couple of male bald eagles hanging out, just standing there in the middle of the field. A couple of geese flew by, and I was like, those aren't geese? What is that over there? So I actually pulled over in the parking lot. Like that was not where I was trying to be, and so I went all the way back there and got as close as I could in the parking lot. Take that picture. So those people in Powell area's got some bald eagles up there.
I think there was some that escaped from Dollywood last year, a year before.
Might be him.
Could be.
All right. Well, you got anything else before we call it a show?
Nothing specific.
Why do we go into that voice for Dollywood?
That's Dolly country.
Yeah, that's hillbilly shit. We like hillbillies. We like mountain folk.
Suburban.
We like Mountain Dew. We like Dollywood.
I hate parking at Dollywood.
I don't like parking at Dollywood. Actually, it got more fun because my father-in-law was a tram driver. So there's a couple times we go and we get in and it's his tram, and so he would so they tell you all the little facts and stuff while they're going. He'd be like, "Oh, by the way, my daughter, son-in-law, and grandkids are back there. Say hello, everybody." It's like, okay, cool. Like, Grandpa, stop. Go, knock it off. We're almost in agreement at gmail.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. The website is up and running. It is almostinagreement.com. Check us out on there. Tell your friends about us. Help us out. I've got Todd Frohmeyer on Monday. I've got Sheriff Spengler coming up on Wednesday. I've got more stuff scheduled out as we get further out. We got city races. We got budgets. We got so many things going on. And we're going to get to the bottom of approximately none of it. But we're going to at least scratch the surface on as much as we can. So stay tuned. If you got anything you want us to look into, let us know. I don't know why I went into baseball, boys. Anyway, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon. Oh, it's baseball season. Like opening day was this weekend.
That's true.
Night.